The first patient drug focused development meeting was back in 2015, and we were in person in front of the FDA, and we spoke about HD. There was actually 2 moms that did speak about JHD at that time as well. And then from 2015, then Seth and BJ put together this amazing group to talk to the FDA about prodromal. And we just thought now it's time for JHD to have their voice at the FDA. We wrote a letter of request, I think in June. I told Katrina, I called Katrina in the middle of the night and said, I just wrote the FDA. And she said, do you want me to check it for grammar? And I said, I already sent it. Luckily, they didn't complain about the grammar. I'm sure it was horrible mistakes because I did do it in the middle of the night, but they did grant the session. So we went to work right away for 8 months and started to prepare for this FDA patient listening session. And we asked 7 moms to come on and speak to the FDA. And it was absolutely incredible what these moms did for the community. If you want to watch the presentations that were given to the FDA, you actually can find them on YouTube. If you go to Help for HD TV, and you can watch the moms go through their presentations that they did present. But for today, we just wanted to follow up with the moms and let's talk about how you feel after the meeting. I know that it's exciting and then you're let down, like you want to see change right away, and change in regulatory and FDA and drug development takes so much time. So I really would like to talk to you guys about how you're feeling now after the meeting. Melissa, you're going to kick off for us.
Hello.
Hi, Melissa.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here all day.
Thank you for having me on. I was just going to say my house is becoming alive and well. So
Good.
I apologize if you hear anything.
Oh, that's life with HD and JHD.
Yes,
So bring it on.
We have our days and nights mixed up.
Oh. Okay, so we're going to go in with your first question. During your talk, you spoke about the differences between HD and JHD. Do you believe that with the misunderstanding of the differences between JHD and adult onset has been part of the delay in children being able to participate in clinical trials?
Yes. So I think most definitely. So my daughter's symptoms and my husband's symptoms are vastly different in terms of how Huntington's disease presents itself. But the greatest difference and the most important difference is that with our JHD children, we're quite literally out of time with nothing to lose. So I think it was important for the FDA to hear how much we want our children participating in these trials in spite of any risks. We know the risks. And in spite of that, we want to move forward and give our children a chance.
Yes, completely. So how do you feel the FDA, do you think that they had a better understanding between the different symptoms that children have to endure versus that adults do not? And then the urgency to find quality of life changing medications for those underaddressed symptoms.
I wanted to say too, also that every day the ability to be able to walk and speak is diminishing at an alarming rate for my daughter, Ava. So every week there is more and more decline, sadly, in her cognitive abilities as well. So clinical trial sponsors, I feel, need to start including these children to be a part of the process. It's solely not up to just the FDA to make that decision. There are many hands in the pot that have to work together to make the vision come to fruition. So ultimately, I think we're all hoping for that. And being a caregiver for both JHD and HD, with how different their symptoms are, specifically the complexity of Ava's symptoms, it really challenges me for how to best care for my daughter with JHD. So if there was a new drug application to treat the underaddressed symptoms, that would be life-changing for so many of these sick children. And it's extremely important for our community that any new drug applications be approved to go into clinical trials so that our children are able to be a part of those trials. So with adult clinical trials, for example, there's so many boxes that have to be checked, so to speak, in order to participate in those trials. So a goal there too would be for our children to be approved like solely based on the fact that they have a diagnosis of JHD. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
Answers that.
Yeah, completely. Thank you. So after the FDA session, what is your number one hope?
So I'll try not to get emotional, but with expressing to the FDA the huge differences between the HDs, our hope would be that for our children to be included in the clinical trials, obviously, most importantly, without the use of placebos, because I think all of us could agree that using placebos for these sick children would be both cruel and devastating. So sadly, with the unique situation that our children face, in this example, they could be their own controls in trials. So we could have instant outcomes with instant data to know if the treatment is working because of how rapid the disease progression is with juvenile Huntington's. So our hope is that we are heard, and so many children's lives are depending on them.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that came across really clear in kind of everyone's talk about the urgency, but also the placebo factor. And I'm so glad you brought that up, Melissa, because hey, London, you guys made it. Hello.
Sorry about that.
No, you're fine. Is that to get this far, and then the placebo, when you guys talked about that and how that would be so hard for you guys because there is no time, right? And so the placebo, when you find out, would it be devastating to find out you were in the placebo group? We know research is research, but still, you finally get a trial for JHD and then you find out your child is in the placebo group. You guys did express that. I thought the FDA was definitely engaged in that part and listened.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Erica, you're up next. Okay. So you spoke to the FDA about dystonia and how you are using off-label therapies or drugs for Olivia. And because of this, you run into problems with insurance and not receiving the therapy as often as Olivia needs. Can you explain this in more detail? And do you think the FDA understood the challenges that you face using off-label drugs? And what would you like to come out of this talk as far as dystonia is concerned? New treatments or therapies, things like that.
So my daughter Olivia has very prominent dystonia in her neck and her left hand. She's on baclofen and trihexyphenidyl for muscle spasms. She also has been receiving Botox for a few years now, and the Botox is only administered every 3 months and a day. I'm not sure if that's a Botox medicine rule or if it's an insurance rule, but within 2 months, the Botox is worn off and her neck becomes really tight. Her hand is extremely tight. Her fingers curl. She can't straighten them out and she's having a really hard time and she's always in pain. So I'm not sure if it's what the actual rule or legality is, why it's not administered any quicker for our children. We also use a CBD cream, a CBD oil, which obviously isn't an off-label thing that I just get at the local store. I'm hoping that the FDA understood these challenges, especially that they got to see Olivia on camera so they could see how her neck looks. So hopefully things like that, being able to see the child, will change things for them. But as parents, our children suffer in pain and feeling helpless and not knowing what to do, we really need something specific for our children. I'm just listening to the other guy speak from Perlenia. It sounded a little hopeful, and then I feel like, did I hear him correctly? A couple more years maybe, or maybe start something for the children. I don't know if he meant starting quicker in Europe, quicker here, but if our children are already having symptoms, does that mean that they don't even get to participate? So it just feels, I know it's hopeful for the other children, and that's always a good thing, but what else can we do? What else can happen right now at the point of this is how I feel? What else can go wrong? So I feel like trying to let our children into these trials, into these medicines is what we need to be doing. Not waiting years and starting with, yeah, you can let the other kids in who don't have symptoms, but what about our kids who do have symptoms? What else can it do wrong? What can go wrong for them? I guess too, if Botox could be administered sooner when it starts running out at the 2.5 months, we would definitely take it. I'm not sure why it's not.
Yeah, absolutely. So you just led into this next question perfectly because you talked about time. And so during the FDA talk about drugs and therapies being approved, we spoke about a broad spectrum approval. And what that would do would hopefully eliminate this time that you just talked about, right? If they just had a broad label spectrum. Why is that important for the children to be a part of that group?
It's important for our children to be part of that group because our children are running out of time. This disease is progressing faster in our children than it does in the adults. And I think that being able to see how putting these children on this medicine, on these drugs, and then following them and seeing what happens and not giving them the placebo, because the placebo is not going to do anything for them. We need something that is going to possibly try to work. So they can follow our children why they have the drug and see what's happening, but our children are progressing faster. So we don't have the time that some of the other patients do. Their lifespan is a little bit longer than our children, and the symptoms in our children progress faster. So we don't have that time, and we need to move quickly on these. Yeah, and we don't need to be able to sit there and get a placebo. We don't need to be able to sit there and try a trial for 3 years. They just need what's coming out. We need to have access to it.
Yeah. I think like one thing that I thought was really when the lady from the pediatric FDA department came on just to introduce herself to you guys and thank you guys for coming and talking. When she came on, I thought she said something very interesting. She said, we look because there's an adult indication, but we look at this a little bit different. Like, why don't we just do the adults first? She goes, but what you guys showed us is that we have to start thinking about this differently now. And I thought that was like so neat of her to say, because it was like, it showed what you guys did was show the FDA, specifically the pediatric department of the FDA, that they have to start looking at this differently. And there has to be maybe some creative ways to go about this, like what you just said, Erica, following the children 2-3 years after the drug, they've started the therapy, and then let the data speak for itself. But I thought that was exciting that they came on.
Hopefully we made an impact and they start doing something about it for our children.
Yeah. So same question. What is your number one hope coming out of the FDA meeting?
I'm hoping that the FDA saw our urgency, that we need access to the trials or the medicines, whatever these pharmaceutical companies are coming out with, that they realize that our children need to be able to participate in them, and all of our children, not just ones who possibly are just starting with symptoms or have it in the family or something, but all of our children who are diagnosed, no matter what stage they are in right now. Because honestly, what do we have to lose at this point in our life? And what does our child have to lose? It can't do much more harm than to see if there's anything good out of it. Yeah. They're not going to get any better without some sort of help. And that's all we can hope for, is to have some sort of help right now.
Yeah. Thank you, Erica. Thank you so much. Okay, so London and Autumn, you guys are up next.
Hey, girl.
Hey,
Yeah.
I see you booping that nose.
All the time, all day, every day.
So we're
You
gonna
and
jump
dirty
into
fingers.
yeah. Cheeto fingers. Oh, that's
Oh, so stinky and gross.
right. Autumn, I'm gonna jump in and ask your mom a couple of questions, and then I have a question for you. Okay? Oh, she's bored with us already.
She's already bored with us.
Okay, London, how did you feel leading up to the FDA meeting? Do you feel like you were listened to by the FDA? Kind of a duel.
I was nervous. I was excited. I was anxious. I was grateful, and I was optimistically hopeful. I had been like ambitiously dreaming of this day. Not a day I would like to be dreaming of. I was dreaming of this day for a long time and never knew if it was even going to happen. And so there was a lot of, what exactly do I say to get them to understand everything they possibly can about autumn. And the hardest thing was deciding what to write. And if you know me, I have a lot to say, and having only 7 minutes, honey, stop. It's hard. It was, I can't lean on her. Apparently that's bothering her. So I'm moving here. Please. Anyway, having only 7 minutes, I wanted to get the FDA to see and get to know this beautiful little girl that I raised, my daughter. And I wanted to see the life that she grew up, and I want to understand the life that was stolen from her. I wanted them to have empathy, and I wanted them to understand how much I love her. And I think they gathered that, and I wanted them to know that I would do anything to get her into a clinical trial, give her a fighting chance, and all of us would. And when we were trying to come up with a title, yeah, that was hard. And Katie actually nailed it perfectly. And I don't know if you know this, Katie, but Melissa actually mentioned that in a podcast that we did when you said, I grieve the past, I grieve the present, and I grieve the future. And it's 100% accurate. But I wanted the FDA to feel empathy for all of us, to imagine if it was like put themselves in our shoes. Imagine if this was your child. And what was crazy is that even though I didn't touch on like any of the symptoms or struggles necessarily at the moment that Autumn's facing, any of the daily horrors or new challenges she has, even though I didn't touch on that, everyone else did. And it was as if we all filled in the blank for each other when all of our stories came together to tell one big story. And I think that was pretty impactful for them. So.
Absolutely. It really was. It was exactly as you said. There, with 7 minutes, you can't tell a whole lifetime of struggle, but with you guys all collaborating, it really did play out nicely. And I think they definitely saw that. During the Q&A session, did you think that anything was brought up by the FDA that you think is important for the community to know about?
I heard you guys touch a lot on this today, as far as their question that they conveyed, that they had seen some flaws in the diagnostic criteria and so on and so forth, and asking if we think being diagnosed early is important. And I jumped in and I'm like, at first I'm like, yeah, it's important, but we need a treatment. You don't want to be testing kids if there's no treatment, but if there's a treatment, absolutely, as soon as possible, long before symptoms, the earlier the better. And he collectively asked everybody that, and we all agreed, all shook our heads. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, we did talk a lot about the diagnostic criteria. We cannot mull over that one again. But what is your, like everyone else, what is your number one hope coming out of this FDA session?
Lots of hopes. My hope is that the FDA left with a better understanding of juvenile Huntington's disease. And I hope that the moment the meeting was over, they were scattering their brains, trying to figure out what they can do to help us help our kids and help our community. And I think I speak for all of us when I say that this is only the beginning of big changes that are coming for juvenile Huntington's disease kids. And I feel like this is a good metaphor, is the butterfly effect. And coincidentally, the butterfly effect. Us as caregivers, we're butterflies, like a kaleidoscope of butterflies, and we're migrating together towards big changes for our community. So when you feel the wind, that's us coming.
I like that imagery. Okay, thank you so much, London. I'm going to.
And I want to also say thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to be able to have a seat at the table and be able to speak to them. It was something that I needed to do. And there's lots more that needs to be done, but this is a first step towards that. So.
You did very well. You all did.
I can't even imagine a different group.
No,
Like
it was perfect.
And I think like we all literally did we, or did we not all get off? Like, I think we just all knew that it went, like, you just all felt, wow. I don't know what it was about it, but it went great. It couldn't have been more perfect.
Yeah. And not to break it, I don't know. This was my third FDA meeting I've been on that I've either participated in or I've seen. You go into Q&A and it's silent. Like, they don't ask questions and they don't really comment much. You guys were flooded. Like, they went overtime. The FDA doesn't go overtime. We went overtime 3 minutes, and we actually went 18 minutes, because that 15 was like a gap that they were like, we don't think we went that and more. And it was, to me, that really showed the job you guys did in your stories were so powerful that they just wanted to come on and talk to you and say thank you, and say thank you for being brave enough to do this. And then also say what division they worked for, what they did, and how that would play a role in your journey if there was an NDA, a new drug application brought to them, and how they would play that role. And I've never seen that before. And the reason why is because the way you guys did it was so good. You really painted a picture for the FDA. So the group, like I said, I can't imagine it going better or a different group. It was just, that
Yeah.
energy was right where it was supposed to be.
It was perfect. And but you too, Katie, you and Katrina, all of us coming together to just, there was a lot of behind the scenes that went in that. I think it took me like 2.5 months to write 7 minutes worth of stuff. And I'm just like, anyway, and then there's also lots more, but yeah, there was a lot went into it, but it went wonderfully. And yeah. And I love the group that I was a part of. And I'm glad that we all got to speak for everyone. And
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
No,
Of
thank
course.
you.
So Miss Autumn,
Autumn,
I
is
have
that-
a question for you. So in a few weeks, March 15th to be exact, someone is having a birthday, right?
Yeah,
Is that you or mom?
me.
It is?
That wasn't your question. Your question is, what is it that you are hoping for to receive for your birthday?
A new tattoo that matches my mom.
Oh, yeah.
she wants a third tattoo and she wants me to get one to match.
Okay, do you have an idea of what it's going to be?
Maybe a flower.
Ooh,
We're thinking maybe a flower on the shoulder. So this all just came up yesterday. I don't even know how the heck we got talking about it. But Autumn, I'm like, oh, what about a tattoo for your birthday? She's like, oh yeah. She was so pumped. I'm like, really? So with that said, this was a random idea and I have an extra surprise that I'm going to announce here that not actually my husband doesn't even know about this, nor does Autumn. I'm not going to say the person's name, but somebody reached out to me because they love Autumn and they just want to support us in any possible way they can. And he sent 2 presents for Autumn. One of them I'm saving to give to her on her birthday. The other is $500 to do whatever she wanted with to spend before her birthday. So he told me to come up with an idea. And now I'm going to cry. So he told me to come up with an idea. So when she said she wanted to get a tattoo, I was like, oh, perfect.